Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking on a truly fascinating and, well, frankly, a bit unsettling topic. We're going to pull back the curtain on the subtle, often unseen ways people can be drawn backward psychologically, emotionally, to be controlled. This isn't about grand, obvious manipulations. It's really about understanding those deep-seated pressure points, human vulnerability, things that can leave us susceptible.
Indeed. Yes, we're going to be exploring the powerful concept of regression and how it can be employed in what some have described as, well, the dark art of drawing people backward to control them. Our deep dive today pulls insights from the profound psychological thought of Carl Jung alongside the, let's say, strategic observations of Robert Greene.
Right. And our mission for you, our listener, is to truly understand not just what these tactics are, but how they actually work on a fundamental level, deep within the human psyche. This deep dive is designed to be a crucial cautionary tale, equipping you with powerful insights to recognize these patterns. Whether they're being subtly used on you, or maybe if you ever find yourself tempted to use them, this understanding, you can offer a vital layer of protection for your autonomy. So let's unpack this critical understanding, this human susceptibility. Okay, let's dive into the first crucial type that our material unpacks, emotional regression. So what does that actually look like when it happens to someone? And why is it such a potent tool in manipulation?
Well, emotional regression is, it's essentially when someone emotionally collapses into a much more childlike state. Think about it. The adult maturity that usually guides them, it just seems to evaporate. You might see someone who constantly seeks approval, maybe harbors an intense fear of abandonment, overreacts dramatically to even, minor slights, or clings desperately to any sign of affection. They become driven by this deep-seated insecurity and a profound emotional hunger.
That concept of the inner wounded child,
Yeah.
that feels incredibly potent here. We often think of emotional maturity as a given in adults, right? But these insights suggest there's often a calm mask at play. Can you unpack what that mask is and why it's so crucial for manipulators to recognize?
Absolutely. The truth is, almost everyone carries within them a hidden wounded child. Terrified of rejection, desperate for unconditional love. When life becomes overwhelming, maybe through shame, significant rejection, or intense fear, resurfacing, that carefully constructed adult facade can suddenly fracture. That very moment when the childlike emotional vulnerability resurfaces, that's described as the moment of capture for a potential manipulator. It's a profound truth, really. Many adults carry an unhealed core. It makes them perpetually susceptible to anyone who offers even a glimpse of that missing unconditional acceptance. It's a vulnerability that, while it transcends individual trauma, it speaks to a deeper human need for belonging, for safety.
And Carl Jung offers a fascinating lens for this, doesn't he? How does his concept of the inner shadow help us understand this process, this projection, where the target might see the manipulator as a kind of savior?
Jung would frame this emotional child as part of what he called the inner shadow. These are the suppressed, the rejected parts of ourselves, the vulnerabilities we try to hide, even from ourselves. When we deny these emotional needs, they don't just vanish. Instead, they continue to secretly dominate from the unconscious. So the manipulator, by appearing to deeply understand this repressed loneliness or sadness, acts as a precise mirror. The target then projects their inner child onto the manipulator, seeing them as an emotional savior or, the ideal caring figure they've always craved. The text highlights a brutal truth. The seducer who holds up a mirror to your repressed needs controls your heart.
That is chilling. Wow. And it raises a question, is this mirroring always manipulative?
Right.
Or can genuine connections sometimes start by resonating with someone's deeper unmet needs? I suppose the intent is key, right?
Yeah.
So how do Robert Greene's strategic observations play into exploiting this vulnerability?
No, the intent is absolutely key. Yes. Greene's tactics in this domain are quite stark. He talks about creating temptation by offering immense warmth, a refuge from judgment, making the target feel uniquely seen and safe. He also advises to appeal to their childhood needs by speaking softly, offering a sense of safety, and deliberately recreating those parental dynamics, essentially becoming the nurturer or protector the target craves. And quite shrewdly, he advocates for mastering the art of the void, which involves using silence and calculated absence to create a gnawing panic, compelling the regressed person to crawl back just to fill that sudden emptiness.
So, okay, to bring this home for our listener, what are the actionable steps? What might a manipulator actually do to induce and exploit this emotional regression?
Right. First, they're always on the lookout for signs. Signs of emotional immaturity, the clinginess, maybe the tendency to overshare, or a persistent need for reassurance. Then they actively feed that need. Lavish praise, parental-like listening, carefully echoing the target's feelings to build this profound sense of understanding. Crucially, at a calculated moment, they'll withdraw affection, triggering those deep-seated abandonment fears. And finally, they position themselves as the sole emotional anchor, making the target believe no one else truly understands them at that deep level. The goal ultimately is to seduce the broken child behind their eyes, because that child, once awakened and dependent, well, it will do anything to avoid being left alone again.
So we explored the emotional landscape. But what about the more tangible stuff, the actions we take or stop taking? That brings us to our second type, behavioral regression. This one often feels a bit more visible, doesn't it, in the real world? What happens when someone undergoes this?
It definitely can, yes. Behavioral regression is when a person starts acting in ways that are, well, immature, outdated, or overly dependent. Under significant stress, or even within the intense dynamics of a new relationship, you might observe them losing their self-discipline, reverting to old addictions, outsourcing even simple decisions, or maybe exhibiting patterns from much earlier life phases. The warning here is quite blunt. People don't fall in love with you, they fall apart.
Right. So it's not love in the healthy sense.
Right.
It means they might suddenly start skipping responsibilities, delaying deadlines, or becoming so obsessively focused on the other person that their own life starts to unravel. The insights we're drawing from claim this isn't love, it's behavioral regression. From Jung's perspective, what's happening internally when that adult function seems to just erode?
Jung would describe this as possession by the inferior function, which is essentially a collapse into a less developed, often unconscious part of the personality. The ego loses its balance, and adult functioning erodes. This dynamic creates what's called a dependency loop. The target initially needs the manipulator to stabilize them, but then the manipulator subtly destabilizes them just enough to perpetually maintain that need. It's a cunning cycle. The essence of it is captured by the statement. Regression is a longing for safety through surrender. The seducer who makes you feel safe makes you surrender your discipline.
And what are Greene's specific tactics for inducing this kind of behavioral surrender?
Greene advises manipulators to lead the target to act rashly, actively encouraging impulsive joy, indulgence, essentially getting them drunk on freedom and breaking down their self-control. He also teaches how to create dependency by stepping in, solving their problems, proactively managing their emotions so they regress into relying completely on you. And a crucial tactic is to break their routine. Because regression, especially behavioral regression, it thrives on chaos, on the dismantling of established structures.
So if someone were to actually apply these principles, how would they go about encouraging this behavioral handover of power?
Well, they would consistently encourage impulsiveness, spontaneous trips, midnight calls, engagement in secret pleasures that feel transgressive. They enable indulgences, positioning themselves as the exception to the target's previously held boundaries. They frequently offer to make decisions, maybe with reassuring phrases like, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Ultimately, the manipulator becomes a deeply ingrained habit, almost like a psychological drug, causing the target to gradually, almost imperceptibly, hand over their discipline, their personal power.
Okay, if the last two types of regression delve into our emotional and habitual selves, this next one, instinctual or primal regression, really digs down into something much deeper, more raw, almost bypassing the thinking mind entirely. This sounds, well, truly profound.
It truly does, yeah. This drops people straight into their limbic system, the most ancient part of the brain, responsible for primal responses like fight, flight, lust, hunger, fear, territorialism. It completely bypasses the rational conscious mind. It becomes pure, unadulterated sensation. The warning here is critical for understanding its danger. Primal attraction is not love, it's possession.
Because it overrides their mind, turning them into someone who acts purely on instinct, not choice. You see physical signs, pupils dilate, breath shortens, jealousy and sexual hunger surge. The insights describe this powerfully. You've reduced them to the animal, and animals don't think, they chase. It's a very visceral way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does Jung's concept, our archetypes, fit into this wild, untamed process?
It is indeed visceral. Jung would describe this as a powerful descent into the archetypal layer of the unconscious, a primal realm where figures like the anima and animus are deep, often unconscious ideals of the feminine and masculine reside. When someone regresses instinctually, they project their archetype onto the manipulator, who then becomes this sacred other, a wild, dangerous fantasy figure that breaks all their internal chains, their societal norms. This form of regression burns through reason. It completely bypasses morality and turns what might start a seduction into an all-consuming obsession. It's a stark warning. You didn't seduce them, you activated the beast inside them, and the beast doesn't let go.
It certainly sounds powerful and incredibly dangerous. When we talk about activating the beast inside, is there a risk that this kind of primal arousal is then confused for genuine intimacy, even by the target themselves? What about Greene's strategies for this kind of manipulation?
Oh, that's a critical risk. Often, the target misinterprets this intense instinctual pull as some profound, unique connection. Greene's methods here are designed to exploit exactly this confusion. He suggests leading through mystery and suggestion to completely bypass rational thought, arouse a deep, primal curiosity. He also emphasizes stirring sexual tension through subtle innuendo, carefully timed touch, intense eye contact, with the ultimate goal being deep fixation, not just physical intimacy, and crucially, creating the forbidden, because primal instincts are irresistibly drawn to what's off limits, to anything that becomes taboo.
So the application here is truly about controlling raw elemental energy.
Exactly. The manipulator masters controlling their own energy, first moving slow, speaking softly, radiating this palpable sense of tension. They introduce a potent sense of danger, often through phrases like, "we shouldn't be doing this," allowing the induced guilt to paradoxically turn into arousal. They cultivate unpredictability, which paradoxically activates possessiveness in the target. And most importantly, they let them chase, understanding that the animal within hunts what actively flees. This is often considered the most dangerous regression because the animal, once awake, well, it doesn't ask for permission, it devours.
Finally, we come to fantasy regression. This one almost sounds, well, romantic at first blush, but our insights suggest it's anything but. What precisely is this phenomena?
Right.
Fantasy regression happens when people escape the harshness of reality, mentally slipping into these comforting illusions of romantic salvation, dramatic, idealized love, or perfect, idealized futures. When they encounter someone who fits that pre-existing fantasy, even partially, their defenses just collapse. They fall hard, not for the person really, but for the dream. The caution is stark. You don't have to be real, just believable. So if I'm understanding this right, the target is doing most of the work themselves. They're building the illusion, and the manipulator just has to fit the mold. Almost like an actor playing a dream role.
Precisely, yeah. People regress into fantasy because the reality they inhabit is often too painful, maybe too mundane, or too disappointing. They desperately want a savior, a perfect lover, a life that feels like a movie scene. If you simply resemble their deeply held fantasy, their conscious defenses crumble. And as the insights put it, they're seducing themselves with your face. It's incredibly powerful because the desire is already within them.
And Jung offers a pretty clear-eyed view of this too, doesn't he? He wouldn't call this love, would he?
No, definitely not. Jung would actually call this a profound form of animanimous possession. The person isn't genuinely falling for them. They're falling for the inner idealized masculine or feminine figure they've projected onto you. He warned that this is a state of psychic inflation where the ego becomes overwhelmed, inflated by these projected fantasies. It loses its connection to grounded reality, becomes trapped in a dream. The manipulative secret here is that the deeper the fantasy, the more addicted the person becomes. Because losing the manipulator would mean waking up from that perfect dream, which would be devastating. It's noted that the seducer becomes a dream given flesh, and no one wants to wake up from the perfect dream.
So what are Greene's tactics for exploiting this deep human desire? For illusion, for escape?
Greene advises manipulators to be the ideal, meaning you carefully mirror exactly what the target desperately wants, be it romance, danger, irresistible charm. You expertly play the role they're dying to cast you in. He also suggests using absence to feed obsession, because when you subtly vanish, they fill in those blanks with even grander, more elaborate fantasies. Lastly, he emphasizes creating moments of surreal emotion through intense, deep eye contact, deeply intimate conversations, maybe even forbidden touches, making their real life feel as heightened and dramatic as a movie.
So the practical application here is really about intimately understanding someone's dreams.
Yeah.
And then stepping into them.
Yes. Exactly. You meticulously study their deepest desires. What do they wish life genuinely gave them? Then you become the fantasy, just enough to hook them, to pull them into that world. You intentionally stay slightly mysterious, so they continually imagine more, filling in the blanks with their own desires. And you orchestrate perfect moments, giving them scenes they'll replay in their minds forever. This regression is uniquely powerful because it's self-sustaining. The manipulator doesn't need to keep actively seducing. The target does the work for them, perpetuating their own illusion.
Wow. What we've just explored, this isn't just abstract psychological theory, is it? It's a detailed blueprint for profound psychological influence, often subtle, always powerful. The final warning we find is chillingly direct. You are playing with fire.
When you pull someone backward into their unhealed wounds, their deepest fears, or their most cherished fantasies, you are undeniably triggering the unconscious. Jung consistently warned that individuals under the power of such unconscious projections are not truly free. In a very real sense, they are possessed by these inner forces. The target may genuinely believe they are loved, but they are in a more accurate reality. Well, they're either worshipped, feared, or simply desperately needed to maintain the manipulator's control.
And the devastating fallout. The insights tell us, once the spell breaks, once the person's seen to your humanness, the fallout can be devastating. Robert Greene, for his part, would pragmatically acknowledge that control is an illusion, but an illusion worth mastering.
So the deep knowledge we've discussed today presents you, the listener, with a crucial choice, a real choice. Will you use it to protect yourself, to spot these insidious patterns, and to safeguard your own autonomy, your free will? Or will you be tempted to utilize it to control others, to exploit these vulnerabilities?
But here's the ultimate caution that truly stands out from our deep dive. Once you awaken the child, the addict, the beast, or the dreamer within someone, you become inextricably responsible for what they become in your presence and for the consequences that follow. In this shadowy dance of seduction through regression, there are truly no innocent players. Think about that the next time you feel an intense, almost overwhelming pull toward someone or something. What stands out to you from today's deep dive?
A truly thought-provoking question to leave you with, yes. This raises an important question for us all, doesn't it? When does intense connection cross that elusive line into psychological possession? And how acutely aware are we really of where that line truly lies?
Until next time, stay well informed and keep digging deeper into the hidden currents that shape our world.